It's the Kyle Hyman Show on Redeemer Radio.
This is Kyle Hyman, and I'd like to welcome back on the show to talk about Exodus 90 and some of the struggles that men have. Joining us is Nathaniel Binversie from Exodus 90. Thanks for being here, Nathaniel.
Thanks for having me, Kyle.
So good to have you. So the big push for Exodus 90 was to start on Monday. But for men that are here, this like, oh, that started on Monday. I was thinking about doing that and just kind of put it off. Didn't realize it was coming. Is it too late to get started now?
It is not, though they'd have to go over the Easter season. Exodus 90 can start at absolutely any time. They just jump in the app, they set their start date, and they can get going now for the next 90 days towards freedom.
And that app is available on any platform, any smartphone or tablet.
Google, Android, absolutely. They can do, if they don't have a smartphone, then they can use the web app. So exodus90.com, top right corner, you can create a login and you can access all the information, the entire spiritual exercise right there.
And it just seems like this has blown up this year. I mean, I've been talking with James Baxter about this for, I don't know, over a year now. But this year seems to be just exploding. How many guys, do you have any idea how many guys are doing Exodus 90 right now?
To give the audience a little bit perspective, the last 3 years we had 7,500 guys go through it in 3 years. And just for January 21st, 90 days to Easter, is over 13,000 men have started Exodus 90.
So almost doubled in one day what took 3 years to build up. That's
absolutely
incredible. Why do you think men are drawn to do this?
I would say especially the multiplication process, why that's happening, is because the exercise actually delivers what it promises, right? It says it's a roadmap to freedom. It's a spiritual exercise for men so they can be free to love and serve their families and the church. And it's doing just that for the men who are willing to put themselves to it and take up that challenge and live the Catholic life in this way. It delivers.
And this is your third time going through the program. Can you talk about the first 90 days that you did? What was that like?
Yeah, it was very different. I certainly didn't work for Exodus 90 at that time. I was a focus missionary, so I was doing it with some students that I worked with. And yeah, very different than now. It was a challenging experience. I didn't expect it to be as hard, maybe for my own pridefulness, which was great that I was going through it for that sake itself. And I realized that even the little asceticisms, though they aren't much individually, are certainly a lot together, and they forced me to give up control of my life to the Lord and just allow Him to take control. So that was my biggest experience there the first time I did it.
So the second time, easier, harder, different, same? Yeah,
definitely different. I think I went at it with more intention to do better, and it was the summertime, and the fraternity makes a huge difference. So the closer you are with your fraternity, the easier it is, if you will, to stay focused and to stay pushed because your fraternity brothers are going to hold you to that. And in the summer, I traveled a lot, and so it made it more difficult for me to stay totally engaged even that second time doing it.
One of the things that you talk about, and in some of the reading through the app that I was doing, talks about different temptations or struggles that men have, distractions, false idols, maybe you would call them. How many of these things, and then maybe we can kind of get into listing some of them, but how much of this do you think is an addiction? Yeah, addiction certainly is a strong word, but it can be. Certainly can be addictions, but otherwise they're definitely attachments that we're trying to break men from, for sure. And attachments that sometimes they know they have, they're really obvious, and some they don't even know they have until they enter into this exercise and they're like, shoot, why do I want a soda so much, or why do I want a beer so much, or whatever it is, or just why do I want to look at my phone right now so much waiting for this bus to come? Right. Yeah, I think that's mine of all of these things. For those that aren't familiar, we've talked about this before, but cold showers, not eating between meals, fasting on Wednesdays and Fridays, abstaining from meat on Wednesdays and Fridays, not doing sweets, desserts, sodas, sugars, sodas. No use of technology outside of for work and paying the bills, things like alcohol. That. Yeah, the technology one is definitely my weakest point. But in the reading, I was reading through this, and it talks about we struggle with addiction to sports, email, mobile devices, work, Netflix, YouTube, television, video games, food, alcohol, tobacco, smoking, money, stock trading, news, homework, public appearance, power, control, hobbies, gambling, materialism, laziness, activism, narcissism, or caffeine. The most common reason people come to Exodus 90 is slavery to pornography and masturbation. That whole list, I think, first of all, it's just an incredible list in and of itself. And as I look at it, I have to kind of challenge myself, like, is this something that I'm struggling with? And some of them are not at all. Like I actually hate looking at the news. Like that's not something that I'm drawn to. Sometimes I feel like I have to for this job,
right,
of being knowing what's going on. But that's not something. I have no addiction to the news at all. But a lot of these other ones, I really see like, yes, this is something that I can do. You see different men struggling with different temptations, and so I imagine different people are doing Exodus 90 for different reasons and hoping to break attachments from different things. So when we come together as a fraternity, we might be having different struggles, and some things are harder for one person than another, but maybe united in that we're struggling with something. So can you talk a little bit about that and how we can recognize some of these weaknesses? And maybe, I think a lot of times we probably justify it and say that this isn't a problem. It's good to know what's going on. It's good to be knowing what the news is. And we don't see it as a negative. So how do we even recognize that some of these are problems?
Certainly, especially here in the United States, like enter into the story of Israel for a moment. The Lord sets them free from their slavery in Egypt, and they're out into the desert to worship Him. But are they really free people, even though they're free from that slavery as they've crossed the Red Sea? We're here in the land of the land of the free, home of the brave. We should be free, right? Aren't we free men? But look at the hearts of the Israelites. They're in the desert. Moses goes up on the top of Mount Sinai for 40 days. And what do the Israelites do at the base of Mount Sinai? They build a golden calf, and they worship this false idol so that they can justify their own actions. Now, for us, we sit here in the same spot of like, well, I'm free. I'm in America. And yet the Israelites were not free in their heart. They still were enslaved to these false gods in their heart. And so we too, there's a different form of slavery here that we sometimes are blind to. And we have the slavery in our heart. And one way I like that Dr. Hahn puts it is, in the story of Israel, it wasn't as much about getting Israel out of Egypt as it was about getting Egypt out of Israel. So for us as men, it's not so much of allowing us to be free from this burden of slavery, but sometimes it might be about getting the American culture out of our hearts.
We're talking with Nathaniel Binversie from Exodus 90 about this. I think calling it a false idol really increases the gravity of it. So I think whenever we hear this story of building a golden calf and worshiping that, it sounds so ridiculous. I don't know any Catholics that would be tempted to do that.
Right.
But what are the things that we are putting before God, that we are making more of a priority over prayer, freeing up our time and refocusing it to what is actually important is so necessary? How do the Israelites, I'm not actually that familiar with the Exodus story, and this has really been enlightening for me reading about it and going through this, but how are they broken of this false idol of worshiping the golden calf? Like, how do they break free of that? Yeah,
so Moses comes down from the top of Mount Sinai, and he sees what's happening, right? He sees them using this golden calf as a justification for the orgy that they want to have at the bottom of this mountain. He takes the golden calf and he throws it into the fire, grinds it up, mixes it with water, and makes them drink it. Okay, so yes, there's lots of punishment that comes, but looking further,
I don't remember that part of the story. That's amazing.
Yeah, so looking further ahead, following the rest of the Pentateuch, what happens? Well, the Israelites continue to fall all the way to the death of Moses and even into the Promised Land. They struggle to be free, but the Lord is so merciful and He's so patient. And they realize as Israelites they need each other to push themselves to follow God. And so the same thing with us in Exodus. We'll continue to fall through these 90 days and struggle with these attachments, use our phone and cheat and cut corners. But you need your brothers, and they're there to point you back to God, who's going to be merciful. He's going to be patient if you're willing to make that attempt, that challenge, that struggle to accept His grace and to follow Him.
Yeah. Why cold showers?
It's a great question.
I was kind of reading through some of the different things online, and for some reason, people are really hung up on the cold shower part of it. And maybe because that seems to have the least spiritual connection, or maybe it's the hardest to make the leap there. So what's the deal behind that?
So the cold showers themselves, we look at the church right now and what's the need from the church? The church needs more from her men, needs men to step up and to be good fathers and good husbands and to really serve the domestic church so that fruit can come. Well, if we're not free as men from these false idols, then we're not able to do that. Once we are free, once we're able to discipline our body and accept these hard challenges, then our responsibility, that what the church needs from us is to be the common priesthood that we were baptized into, baptized priest, prophet, and king. So this priesthood is to take on and to be, as baptized into Christ's priesthood, the sacrifice, the offering, the altar, and the priest, right? So Christ lays himself on the altar when he is offering it at the Last Supper and, of course, on the crucifix. So we, too, need to lay ourselves on the altar, not just at Mass, but in the little altars of life. So in the very beginning of the morning, you get up, you get on your knees, and that bed has just become your altar to lay yourself upon, to offer yourself to the Lord. You go to the bathroom to take your cold shower, and you have the hot water knob and your cold water knob. If you choose that cold water knob, man, you just got your wine, and your bread is there, right there, and you're offering yourself on that altar that is your bathtub, I suppose, in this case, for your wife, for your children. And if you would have chose otherwise, there would have been no bread and wine to be offered. You would have accepted a hot shower for yourself, and no amounts of grace the same would have come from that.
I think in general, too, that's interesting because I had never really thought about it that way. That helps give it a whole lot more depth. I think also, though, just establishing discipline, right? It's not easy to do that. And when I sit there in the morning and I like, I end up, I know it's supposed to be saving water because take a faster shower because it's cold and you want to get out. But I think sometimes I'll just stand there and watch the cold water coming out of the shower and not get it. Like that.
Yeah.
That takes, but then I finally do it, and I've accomplished something. I've gained control over my desires.
Right.
I did something that I chose to do, not something that I wanted to do. And I made a sacrifice. And the more we discipline ourselves, make difficult decisions when it doesn't matter,
right?
Like ultimately, I might have saved a little bit of energy for our electrical bill or whatever, but ultimately I didn't save anybody's soul. It wasn't a sin I was avoiding. So I would say it's one of those areas that doesn't matter spiritually, and maybe doesn't even matter economically or anything. But by making those decisions when it doesn't matter, it makes it easier to make the difficult choice when it does matter. It's kind of like what you do in practice, you do in a game. Like
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter if I make a free throw in my driveway or not. I don't actually get a point for it.
Right.
But the practice and the discipline of it helps me when it does matter.
Yeah, what I hear too often is men say, when I challenge them, well, when the time comes and a hard time comes and things are on the line, if you didn't take these cold showers or you didn't discipline yourself in some way, you won't be able to make that. And they said, oh, well, I'd be able to because something's actually on the line. Yeah, that's like talking to an Olympian and being like, are you going to be able to deadlift this 500 pounds or whatever it is without any practice? And you're like, well, yeah, the gold medal will be on the line, so I don't need to go to the weight room today. Like, that just doesn't make sense, right? So, yeah, if we can't make that little decision to say no to ourselves and just step in a shower, man, like, are we really going to be able to make these hard decisions when the game is on the line, when lives are on the line, when our marriage is on the line, or our children's just goodness for that day to receive the goodness of a father is on the line?
Yeah. Well, I know you got a great video on the website, exodus90.com, if people want to learn more, get a little bit of inspiration for it. Would you also recommend, even if they're not looking to do Exodus 90, download the app and read through some of the materials that are on the app?
Absolutely. The whole field guide is right there that'll help explain prayer, asceticism, and fraternity, and Exodus 90 in a real deep way, filled with scripture and catechism. So check that out, exodus90.com.
All right. Thanks, Nathaniel. Appreciate it.